Hi, this is Michael Senoff with Michael Senoff's HardToFindSeminars.com. The title of this interview is called How to Start from Scratch in the Copywriting Field and End Up Getting $1 Million Sought-After Results. Here's an interview with legendary copywriter David Garfinkel. After reading the motivational book, Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow, David Garfinkel quit his job as a reporter and decided to pursue his dreams. He quickly went broke, but because he kept taking chances while following through on every opportunity, he eventually ended up on top. And in this audio interview, you'll hear his amazing story. David now works as a highly paid and sought-after direct sales coach and copywriter who makes anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 per client. But he admits the climb to the top is not always and rarely should be an easy one. According to David, you've got to go through experiences in your career where you're underpaid and giving more than you're getting in order to gain the confidence and skills necessary to become successful in the direct sales copywriting field. And in this hour-long interview, you'll hear the steps you can take to get started today. You'll also hear about a down-to-earth look at aggressive marketing, how to know when enough is enough. You'll learn why it's so important in copywriting to make prospects think you're one of them. You'll learn the most important and often overlooked area that David says he was missing from his copywriting that once he added made his career take off. You'll learn why David says he didn't experience the wonders of direct mail until he went online and how you can make the most of the internet too. You'll learn what to sell as a seminar speaker if you don't have your own product. You'll learn 3 of the biggest mistakes David says he's made in his career and how to avoid them. And you'll learn about the one and only kind of business you'll never want to work with as a direct sales copywriter. According to David, you should never judge your copy by how easy or pretty it is, only by the kind of results you get. And in this interview, you'll hear how David gets his $1 million results and how you can begin getting them too. Now let's get going. For more information on David's copywriting templates, go to www.davidgarfinkeltemplates.com. Before we get into this, you were telling me how you went broke, so I want you to tell me that story first. How is it that you went broke?
I went to Chicago, and I was really good at writing about computers. By now it was the mid-'80s, and the San Francisco bureau chief job opened up. After 40 years, one person had been sitting on this job.
San Francisco bureau, what is that?
The bureau is like the field office for reporting, and so I'd been in the Chicago bureau. And I didn't really like living in Chicago that much. And it turned out there was a job opening in San Francisco, and that would be like the top reporting job in San Francisco for the news service. And so I applied for it, and I got it. And I thought, oh, well, now that I'm living in San Francisco instead of Chicago, life's going to be wonderful. And it turned out that life was exactly the same, because it was the job and it was the people I was working with that were making me feel the way I was feeling. Or maybe it was something inside of me, but it certainly wasn't the city I was living in.
How were you feeling?
Lousy. Terrible. I mean, I was smoking myself to death, drinking as much as I could to numb the pain.
Were you doing the same thing in Chicago?
Oh, yeah. Well, in Chicago, it's called antifreeze. But, yeah, pretty much. So, I heard of this book called Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow. And I thought, oh, I'm not loving what I'm doing. So call this magical thinking. I don't know. I said, I'm going to quit and I'm going to do something else. I didn't even know what else I was going to do. I thought everyone had it better than I did. It was not a moment of clear-headed thinking in my life. So I quit and proceeded to go deeper and deeper into debt and, use up all my savings and run up all my credit cards. And I started a business in the early 90s where I was teaching people how to do public speaking, which is sort of odd because I didn't know myself.
How old were you when you quit that job, the San Francisco bureau?
32.
How long were you just kind of drifting around?
I'd say 5, 6 years.
Okay, so you went through your savings and you were just screwing around.
I was looking for something. Yeah, I was making an effort. I was doing whatever freelance writing or consulting or coaching or whatever I could pick up, but I just didn't have a lot of focus.
Okay, so give me the scoop on Gary Halbert. How is it that you met him and ended up down at his seminar?
I was in this business with another guy, and we were teaching people public speaking, and I got this newsletter. In those days, he was charging $200 a year for the newsletter, and in order to increase allow people to gift somebody else 6 months of it, and he gave them a coupon. And actually, my business partner got this newsletter, but, he wasn't a writer, and I was, so he gave it to me, and I read it. This is first I'd ever heard of it. Had this cover letter, so-and-so has gifted this to you, and then there was a newsletter. And I read it, over and over again. And I thought, I've never seen anything like this. I was floored. And the next one came, and the next one came. I said, I don't understand what he's doing, but whatever it is, I want to do it. When people come into direct marketing from being an outside salesperson, they get it. A lot of people like Dan Kennedy and Yannick Silver and others, they realize, oh, this is a way of getting prospects to call you, and it eliminates the need for cold calling, and it's much more efficient. I was looking at it more from the point of view of being a writer and thinking, wow, you can make a lot of money doing this. So that, I think, was when I first started to put it together. Oh, I could make a lot of money writing this way, and this is really cool what he's doing. This looks like a lot of fun. I had no idea how hard it was. It was very, very hard at first.
So you got his pitch for the Hurricane Andrew seminar?
Yeah, and that was an interesting pitch. There were sort of two sides to Gary, and I don't think many people have talked about. Everyone knows he's this copywriter and wild man, and maybe sort of on the edge. But I also feel like there was this very humanitarian, almost spiritual side to him, too. And maybe that was just part of his pitch. I don't know, but I always felt that. And the pitch for the Hurricane Andrew seminar was, come to this seminar. It's free. And all I ask is at the end of the seminar, you write a check to the Red Cross for whatever amount you think the seminar was worth. And, I didn't have two nickels to rub together. I don't know how I got there. I went there with a buddy. We roomed together, and he's a mailing list broker, so he was sort of in the business. I knew him from my mastermind group.
How many people were there, do you remember? Packed?
Yeah, it was packed. There were a few hundred people there, I think. It was in Key West. And that was definitely a turning point in my life in a very big way. I remember one of the things Gary made us do is go to this shop and buy these baseball hats with a great ponytail attached to the back of it. He said, because if you wear this, you'll look like the locals, which was, preposterous, but a really important lesson. In any kind of direct response letter, the person needs to think, oh, this guy's like me. He understands me. He's one of us. He's part of my tribe. He's part of my group. And, yeah, I got so much out of that letter. I remember sort of like a little snapshot in my mind that someone was talking, and I was writing as fast as I could, taking notes, and Carlton and Halbert looked over at me, and I think they were worried that I was going to have a heart attack or something. There was a look of genuine concern at how worked up I was getting.
Did they say anything?
No, but I talked to Carlton about that years later because, he and I are friends, and I've been his wingman at some seminars, and he's done some hot seat seminars. And he said, yeah, we were going to have to call the EMT or something. I really got excited. Writing was like something I did. There's a guy in Hollywood named Robert McKee, teaches screenwriters, and he says, writing is the hardest thing in the world, except for a writer, and then everything else is harder. That's sort of been, a story for me that every time I tried to get away from it, it would just keep bouncing back to me like a magnet. So I'd done it, but I was never really passionate about it. But copywriting, I got passionate about. I really liked it.
Do you know how Gary Halbert died? I'm just curious.
All I know is what I read, and that was that he died peacefully in his sleep in a hotel. That's all I know.
So John Carlton was there, Ted Nicholas spoke there, David Deutsch. Was Joe Vitale there?
Joe was not there, no. I was on a mission at that point. I realized the one missing piece of my education as a writer was persuasion and sales. I'd done some sales training. I'd studied selling, but I hadn't really learned the bigger picture of persuasion. So I started going to all these NLP persuasion seminars all over the country throughout the 90s. And one of them was with Michael Hall, and that was in Houston, and I was in touch with David Deutsch at that point. He said, hey, you ought to meet my friend Joe Vitale. I said, okay. And so I did, and we really hit it off. We liked each other. I just talked to Joe earlier this week. They've been friends for a long time. In fact, he was interviewing me for his Hypnotic Gold series, but at the time we just met. And because of the connection we made, and then, 6 years later that I came out with my first copywriting course, Joe introduced me to Mark Joyner, who was just starting up Aesop Publishing at the time. And he said, send this to Mark. He would actually digitize, this is a cassette and workbook thing. It's late 90s, right? Early 2000. He said, he'll put this online. He'll sell it. So I sent it to Mark, and I remember getting this email from him. He said, David, I'm only half an hour into this, and I know that I want to do this. Well, thank you, man. That's great.
Now, Now, what did you put together?
I put together something called the Money-Making Copywriting course.
Was this like your first product?
It was my second product, really. Actually, my first product was one of the big attractions of copywriting to me. I put together this audio cassette called Let Your Clients Do Your Selling. It was about how to get referrals. This was in the early 90s.
Now, before you describe that, I want to ask you, was the Halbert seminar, Hurricane Andrew, a direct influence that you need to create your own product and start selling it yourself?
No, I'd already done that. My problem was I wasn't able to sell it in writing. I had to sell it over the phone for a $30 product. When I was broke, it was not a very efficient way to sell it.
Had you created a product before you hit Halbert's seminar or gotten his newsletter?
Probably after I'd gotten the newsletter and before I'd hit his seminar.
All right, so after you got his newsletter, that was an influence for you to create your own stuff and sell it. Because he was always talking about creating your own report and market it yourself.
Yeah.
And I heard that in the interview with Ann Sieg about that referral product, and you said that you just couldn't sell it or it wasn't selling?
Well, see, the only way I knew how to promote it was with PR because I'd been a reporter. But I didn't know how to set up an order page or, how to do an order form through the mail. I didn't know anything like that. So people would call me about it, and they'd ask me about it, and I think I'd get a check or take a credit. It was incredibly inefficient. So I needed a more efficient way to sell it.
Let's go back to Mark Joyner. He's halfway through this product that you created.
He's halfway through the first audio cassette. It was like a 6 or 7 hour course, and he says, yeah, I definitely want to publish this. This was like a multimedia thing. There were sealed envelopes inside that you'd have to open, and there were flashcards and a manual and everything. And he found a way to put all of that online.
Now, had Mark already promoted Joe Vitale's book at that time?
I think so. I think that was how Joe knew Mark.
You're listening to an exclusive interview found on Michael Senoff's HardToFindSeminars.com. I think Mark promoted his book because I interviewed Joe, and he told me about that story. How Joe had heard about this guy, Mark, and Mark said, I want to take your book and sell it online. And Joe's like, what are you kidding? Sell it online? What are you talking about? And then he ended up selling like thousands of copies of his book.
Yeah, Mark's an incredible marketer. Mark had actually come up with a report on, I don't know, maybe a search engine positioning or something, and he gave it away, and he had like 1 million downloads, and this was like in the 90s or something. It was like awesome.
Yeah, he must have had a humongous mailing list.
He has a strategic way of thinking, understands the internet really, really well, and knows what to do.
Did he end up promoting your product?
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
Oh, it changed my life.
Can you say how much stuff he sold?
I don't know, but we sold a lot.
Were you still broke at that time?
No, this was like 7 years later. I was way past that. Yeah, I mean, I was at that point a copywriter, and I was doing coaching and consulting, and so I was...
For more information on David's copywriting templates, go to www.davidgarfinkeltemplates.com.
Not where I am today, but I was comfortable, or more comfortable than I'd been when I was going broke. We sold something like $60,000 worth of these courses in either the first week or the first month. I mean, I'd never seen anything like this. I didn't really personally experience the wonder of direct marketing until I went online. I mean, I'd already written a letter for somebody that was making them $5 million a year, but I wasn't seeing any of that. Hi, it's Michael Senoff with HardToFindSeminars.com. Thanks for watching this video. Many of my interviews last 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, sometimes even up to 2.5 hours long. They're actual mini seminars, and you've just listened to a short sample of just one of over 117 hours of exciting, hard-hitting, mind-blowing interviews on how to make money in direct mail, advertising, copywriting. I assure you, there is not a resource anywhere on the internet or on the planet that comes close to the free information I provide at HardToFindSeminars.com. So go right now to HardToFindSeminars.com, and you'll have free access to 117 hours of audio interviews with typed word-for-word downloadable transcripts and downloadable MP3 files. Please browse some more of the videos or go right directly to HardToFindSeminars.com. Thanks for watching.